Saul, your host here, and we've got Ria Garg from Exango. So welcome to the webinar. I'm thrilled to see the system working today. Thank goodness. We had IT problems the other week, and I'm so sorry for that. That embarrasses me as an IT kind of guy, but glad to see the system's working today. So welcome everyone, and Ria, thank you so much for dialing in to join us as well.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for having me. It's always lovely to speak to you, to address people's issue, to serve back to them. It's always great. Thank you for having us.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. And look, we're going to have some PowerPoint stuff today, but it's going to be conversational. And we're going to talk about the power of checking in with our support workers in particular. Like I've been using Exango now for more than 6 months in my own business on the Central Coast. And I've always had that scaling mindset. And that scaling mindset is like, okay, I can get by now at this level, but what happens when I've got 100 participants, right? And I guess my recent story is that I'm thrilled to say my business all of a sudden has had the happy moment where it's just gone, and it's just all of a sudden gone hyperbolic. It's amazing. And so I've been using lots of the functions we're going to talk about today in my own business. And I guess that lived experience of it literally addresses the point of how do you do things at scale. And so it doesn't matter whether you're small, medium or large, the things we're going to talk about work for any NDIS business. Which I think is an important principle. Have the technology from the beginning, even if you're smaller or whatever at the beginning. So I want to get to know everyone as an audience here for a second as we kind of kick this off. So I am going to start off with a bit of a poll. So on the right-hand side of the screen, I'll leave this up while we chat for a minute. The question is, do your support workers currently clock into their shifts using geotagging? So if you know the answer to that, please put yes or no or unsure. And what that actually means is that is your system that you're using literally using GPS to check where the workers are? And the reason that that's relevant is because I see it as a safety measure. Unfortunately, you can have staff that may break integrity with you at some point, and they might. There is the risk of them lying or being in bed or whatever, or they got sick and they couldn't turn up and they didn't communicate. So we need to validate that. So I can see that so far, actually, this is good news for the industry. Everyone that's answering so far, we've got about 50-50. Right? About 50% of the audience are saying yes so far, and 50% are saying no. So we'll talk about that in a bit more detail, but that's, thanks to the responses, that's interesting to see that answer there. We'll talk, get into that more. And I suppose the other thing that we're going to get in today is like, if you think about your billing processes and again, checking in on people, the question I've got is, whenever you do your invoicing, and this is for the audience now, you've got to do your timesheets, right, for everyone that's done a shift. So I call it timesheet reconciliation, that then leads to invoice generation. The question we've got is, how long does that take you? Right, so that's the next poll question there. Is it less than an hour and it's a breeze and it's easy? Or is it 2 to 3 hours? Is it more than 4 hours, or is it even longer? And this, by the way, depends on your systems, right? I personally coached a Sydney provider that was a $15 million business using Excel. And I was like, what? You're on Excel still? Are you kidding? And they did it, but the invoicing was a mess, right? They were all over the place. It's hard to know who did what, and there's some invoices that were never issued in 6 months. So it's insightful to see that on some of the answers here, we've got people saying in the even longer category. And then in my opinion, and Ria, let me ask you a quick question, without going into the detail quite yet, would you agree that if it's taking 2 to 3 hours, that's taking too long?
Yes, it is taking too long.
Yeah.
Because within, if you're using technology, it can be done within 5 minutes if you're doing everything correctly. So that's how we are saving like 90 to 95% of admin time. So people using Exango, it is very quick for them. And let's talk more about it in detail so that people know of how can we cut that time.
Yes, exactly. We'll get into that. Okay, cool. All right. This is just a little pre-teaser, everyone. So let's get into a bit of presentation and go into it. Okay. So I'm going to share my screen now, and we'll give it a go. So Ria, just to check in, can you see the PowerPoint slide coming up? Ria, can you see that? I can't. You can. Thank you. Awesome. Okay, cool. Well, let's go into it. So, the first subject of checking in is indeed geographically tagging things. So, I think that it's validating when someone arrives on shift that they're actually there. From a privacy point of view, participants and workers, I think people would be freaking out a little bit if you were tracking them for the whole shift. How does it work in Izango in terms of when you track someone? What point are you tracking someone's GPS coordinates?
When someone is clocking in and clocking out, that's when we are checking their GPS coordinates, because we're not live tracking them, because with Apple, they have got an issue with the privacy.
Yep.
So that's the reason when someone is on the shift, they're going on the shift, that's when we are checking their GPS location.
And that's a good safety measure because, again, you've got vulnerable people. Like the NDIS practice standards has even the concept of a vulnerable persons register. So unfortunately, I think 1 or 2 years ago, there was a case in, it was either Adelaide or Melbourne, so forgive me, but a participant died because there was one provider, one worker, no one else. They were literally completely vulnerable if that person did not turn up to the shift. So this is why tracking this kind of stuff is crucial. And with your answer to the question there, you're maintaining everyone's privacy still because you're just talking about the initial part.
Yes. And also when they're clocking out, and if someone doesn't clock in, we also send reminders to the admins.
Correct. And you know what I did with you guys as well, and by your colleague, I got Izango to start sending an SMS automatically to my workers directly if they forget to clock in. It's cool. It's really cool. It's been helpful because it's even further helped reduce my admin time because they just go, "Oh yeah, sorry, boss," and they do it.
Yeah, and people don't have to keep calling. Like admin staff doesn't have to keep calling saying, "Are you on the shift?" So they're all aware of it already.
Yes. And then again, this is not just about your workers. This is about your sales and marketing because, frankly, if you can say as a company that you do this stuff, then you're seen as a differentiator that really truly cares about your participants, right? So it's all. I'll tell you what, Ria, the biggest breakthrough I've had in my business is that if I make my operations so bloody good that I'm proud to talk about them during the sales process, then that's how people resonate with you being a good provider.
True.
And it really it's helped stick out. Because again, like as we talked about, if you're notifying of non-attendance, that could actually save someone's life because we're dealing with vulnerable people. So what about if someone, I've got participants that say on a Saturday, you can't reliably meet them at home and they'll drop you a text and go, meet me at Westfield. But what can you do for that kind of stuff?
So with that kind of stuff, people can either change the location. So even in Izango, you can set primary location, maybe any of their, wherever they're going very frequently. You can mark these locations in their profiles, and whatever the shift is for, you can just choose that location. It's not necessary it has to be done through their home location only, or also you can mark it as clocking from anywhere, and then they can just go and clock in from anywhere. But we are taking the clocking latitudes and longitudes, so we know what place exactly it is.
Love it. Great. So that's two very viable options. And even that idea of, going to meet somewhere that's regular, like I use that, I actually create shifts in my system for meet and greets. And so if I'm not there as a manager and I'm relying on my support worker to do a meet and greet as part of, again, the sales onboarding process, that's great because I know that they genuinely attended and I can put the address in a flexible way of where the meet and greet is going to be, whether it be a cafe or whatever.
Yeah, you can do that.
Brilliant. Okay. It's all about dashboards and visibility, right? Have you actually arrived? Where were you, etc., and having approaches to flexible, configuration, basically. Okay.
Yeah.
By the way, I can't see the chat right now because I've got the PowerPoint up. But if you've got questions along the way, then please, put them in the chat box, and we'll get to them shortly after these slides. Okay. I suppose the other thing is timesheets, right? So when you've got transparency of clocking off, for example, in terms of exact time and location, different businesses do things in different ways, right? Some providers might bill for actual hours, and that's maybe more the attitude of an independent support worker, like I'm going to bill you for the actual hours that I go there. But I think bigger providers might tend to say, no, you've got a service agreement, you've got a schedule of supports, and you have to do 9 till 1 o'clock only because that's what your budget allows for. So I personally have configured Isango so that I pay my workers and bill my participants based on the rostered time, not the actual clocking off time. Could you again just like speak to the distinctions between those things and what flexible options there are?
So the first two options are exactly what you said, that people, there are clients who are asking for actual time of clocking in, clock off. That is what they're billing and paying for. And apart from that, it is what is scheduled. Then further, they can also go. There are also people who are doing the splitting. For example, people are asking for a shift. If a shift is falling between the morning rate and the evening rate, so they're charging. For example, the shift was from 9 to 11 in the evening. So from 9 to 8, they're charging the morning rate, and 8 to 11 the evening rate. But there are also people who are charging on the basis of falling rate. So that also is a convenience and is given as an option in Isango, depending
That's
on
really cool.
whatever suits for the business. Yeah. So we
And it's
basically want
relevant.
the software to run as per their business, not they are running the business as per what software is asking them to do.
I love the flexibility because you know we've got the NDIS price guide, which has got rules. We've got the SHADS award, which has got rules. And the way I like to think about it, I was speaking to my GM about this the other day. It's kind of like you have to be religious, but are you fanatically religious about the way those two things work? You know, like if you're a fanatic, then you've got to set it up in an exact way, and I know Isango can do that. And then if some people go, "Oh, that's a bit rigid. I'm gonna just charge this for this and that's for that." It's got options for both, doesn't it? Depending on clock out times, actual times, scheduled times, it's all there, depending on how you choose to run your business. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about the idea of completing a shift? So, like again, if you think about the ultimate down the track thing is approving a timesheet to send an invoice or to then do payroll, etc. Like, what are the rules for what's seen as a tick? This shift is actually complete and administrationally correct.
So we've got a standard thing wherein like we ask people to write at least minimum of 150 characters in the care notes. So it doesn't get too much, it's just around 2 to 3 lines, but it does make a difference. Once at least, because you just don't want to know I've completed a shift. You really want to, as a provider, you want to know what exactly has happened on the shift, right? So that's the first criteria. Second is if someone is claiming any kind of kilometers from your end, but not writing the description to why are they claiming those. Again, the shift cannot be marked as completed. Then we've got several shift forms like medication charts, PRN medication, fluid intake, ball movement chart, weekly blood glucose, and XYZ. There are plenty of forms already existing in the system. And if any of the form has been marked as mandatory, that has been marked as mandatory because it does make a significance to that particular shift. Again, if that particular form is not completed, the shift will not be marked as completed.
That's perfect.
But then again, it is subjected to business as well. Any kind of providers, whatever they're requiring, as it is 100% customizable system in the enterprise version of the software, they ask for it and we just give it.
Wow. Because again, in the dashboard, you've got your green shifts, which are completed. If it says yellow, for example, it means it's not completed. But it's brilliant because then you can just open it up and you can say, "Oh, worker, you forgot to put in one of those 3 things that you said. Please complete it." Yeah. It is relevant because compliance is crucial, and even on the shift notes side of things, there's a microphone input where you can. I use this all the time if I go on shift. I speak into the microphone, it does voice to text, and it takes me 30 seconds to write the draft of the shift notes, and I just manually edit it for another 30 seconds, and it's done. So it's really easy. That's crucial. I think that also one thing that I learned recently is that we've got a household where we're looking after 3 participants and, mother and 2 daughters, and we've set up what's called a household inside of Isango. And it's cool because not only can we have one shift that is then split with the billing, we can then, because it's a household, when we do our shift notes, we can say, here's the shift notes for the daughter, here's the shift notes for the mother, and it's all just there automatically and easy to complete, which is relevant because you can't just mix all those care notes into one. You're looking after 2 different people in that example.
That all is compatible with our system. And apart from that, whatever the business requirements are, we can just put them in IT terms and make it all easy for them so that they are not using paper anymore and not losing stuff, and everything is there for the auditing purposes as well.
Correct. So it's like a stage gate. It's a milestone thing that you have, criteria you have to pass through. And if you pass through them, then brilliant, you're ready to do billing, you're ready to do payroll, hence it can be automated. So I think like you can have rules, can't you, to this is the next subject here that links. On a Monday morning, I get my manager to do billing at 9 o'clock. It literally takes her 10 minutes. It's incredible. And she goes in and you just, most of the timesheets are automatically approved because of these rules that we put in place with you guys. And then for the small percent where you kind of go, oh, why wasn't it approved? You just open it up, you see what happened, and then you make a judgment call to either manually approve it or adjust the data that needs to be in there, etc. But it literally takes 10 minutes. And it's, that means that we're addressing the common pain point of reconciliation. We're having the auto approval thing that literally saves hours. And then it means quite literally that we can press one button and then it creates draft invoices inside of Xero. We go to Xero, we select all the invoices. It's an invoice for every participant. It's correct by definition. We click approve, we click email to plan manager. It's done. So, yeah, I mean, look, I know I just kind of summarized it, but I know it's just a summary of it all. But like, tell me again, Ria, like, what's the passion and what's the perspective of Ezanga when it comes to this timesheet to billing point of view?
So the passion and thought behind is to reduce their admin time, because we do understand that they've got fixed amount of billing which they're going to do, and there's, as per the rules from NDIS and SHAD awards, there's a fixed amount which they have to pay and bill. Where they can save money is saving their admin time. That is where they are lacking the most. And at times it can be, it's a technology, we have to build things for you. It can be time consuming at times when you're first building it, but once you get the hands-on of system, it is super easy. You don't have to work anymore sitting long hours putting in all the invoices in your accounting platform, marking it whether it's correct or not. We've given you the timesheets there, just approve it from there. See, everything happens from that approval process. Once the approval is done correctly and you've set the rules in the system for what you want to bill and pay, it's all just with 2 to 3 clicks. That's all.
Yes.
And further, we have also made it easy for them. For example, if a client is plan managed client, the invoice is directly sent to their plan managers.
Yep.
That's correct. How it is, how easy it is, but it's just a matter of using the system correctly.
Correct. I do think there's a scaling point here as well. So like, I had 2 really, positive pieces of news in the last 2 months where we brought on a large new household, and, from a payroll point of view, it's a big commitment, right? Because as everyone knows, you bring on something and you may have a service agreement that starts today, but you've got to cover the wages, right, for this week. And then you might get to bill next week. And then if it's a new plan manager working with the new service agreement, etc., then just for the first one, it could take more than a week to get that money. So the point is that because of the way service agreements, service delivery, payroll, the way that all works, from a cash flow point of view, you've got a 2 to 3 week period where you've got to put kind of a bit of money up front for payroll, knowing that you're going to get paid soon. And then it equalizes, right, from that point onwards. But this is why these systems are crucial, because I couldn't recommend it enough to do a billing cycle of basically weekly billing, right? And then Monday morning, bill for Monday to Sunday of the previous week, because literally, I've seen this in my own business. If I wait to 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock on Monday afternoon, there was one time where we're like, oh my God, the invoices haven't coming enough. We had to like move money around to make payroll, because literally the difference of one working day actually impacted, we're like, oh God, we just made it. But if we bill at 9 o'clock before 10 o'clock or whatever, we've consistently noticed that the money comes in well. And just to give a little tip here, payroll we do every fortnight, and we actually, it's for the Monday to Sunday, but on purpose we pay on a Wednesday, because if you think about it, if you're billing at 9 o'clock Monday morning, you've got the whole working week to collect that money, and even if it spills over to getting a remittance on the Monday or the Tuesday, it means the money is in your bank account by the Wednesday that you do payroll. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Anyway, I've noticed that that's crucial as you grow.
Yeah, and that's why technology and systems are important, because the thing which you're doing within seconds, right? It is taking hours and days for them to put in. If they're not putting in that data at correct time, and it's taking that long for them, again, it will further impact them getting the money from NDIS.
Yep, 100%. So couldn't recommend it enough, and I hope those tips around Monday mornings and maybe fortnightly payrolls on a Wednesday, I found that incredibly productive. And it means that we're always able to take on that new one because we can shuffle it around, we'll get the money in efficiently, and it'll work. So yeah, I can tell you from experience, all the big providers are doing weekly billing, not fortnightly, not monthly, no Excels, weekly billing. Yeah.
So a tip from Chris.
Okay. We kind of talked about this a little bit, but yeah, roster time versus actual time. Like, I suppose, tell me some of your experience on actual time a bit more, because, you know, in my coach's mindset, I go, oh, an independent support worker would do that. Do you at Xanga also have companies that are truly doing stuff on actual time? Like, are you seeing that as a scenario?
Yeah, cool. we are completely seeing that, because actually there are people who don't want to bill and pay more than what actually someone has spent time with them. But again, then it comes to the roster time, because that's what they have also scheduled a schedule for them based on their requirements, their funding, all those things. So it is completely different for two different people. Again, depending on what business rules are for your business, what's working well with your business, we give them leverage to do whatever they want to do.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah,
that's good. And I think you're right. Sometimes it's unilaterally how you run your business in general. And you also alluded to a very good point there, that choice and control from the participant, the customer point of view. There will be some that want to do it that way, right? In terms of, you know, checking in on your workers and kilometers and fuel and all that kind of stuff, again, when people think about timesheets and payroll and all that stuff, Xanga fundamentally links the kilometers that are claimed from someone's plan to the shift itself, right? And I know it might sound like an obvious point, but I know for a fact that some companies might have some kind of manual process where you say, oh, you know, pop me an email or fill in this spreadsheet and then we'll get round to paying you kilometers. Basically, logically linking it to a shift time is crucial, because, correct me if I'm wrong, that's going to also, can you tell me how it works with, say, the invoicing? Because, I mean, I've seen this, but I want the audience to hear it, right? If you've got a zero invoice, is it right that you've got like a line item for the you know, $67 an hour, plus you've got a line item for kilometers? Like, what do you see? What does it translate to?
Exactly. So as in the NDIS price card, it is told that this is what is going to be billed for for the client, right? If anybody's claiming kilometers, now it can be a company travel or provider travel. So we are giving the leverage to your support workers to fill in during, because they are the people going with them or for them, right? So that is when they can put in of how much have they traveled. They can put the images of their odometer readings if in case people want to have more clarity about it, whether the kilometers are being put there are correct or not. So, and once they've put in there, it is visible in the timesheets while you're approving the timesheets for them. And as soon as you're approving it, we are also paying those kilometers and also billing those as per the NDIS price guide. And whatever you want to pay, that completely depends on your thing.
Good. And each business will have different policies, right? Some, especially for regional areas, perhaps it might be relevant to charge provider travel, i.e. charge to travel to the shift. And then for others, it might be just whilst you're on the shift, which is activity-based transport. Yeah, interesting.
So again, it is about how a business is doing it.
Yes, exactly. Also, from a reporting point of view, like a schedule of supports and a service agreement, you know, we'll typically say, oh, you've got 20 kilometers or 30 kilometers per shift. If you've got the ability to run, can you tell us about reporting? Because, like, you know, sometimes support workers and clients, they have these different expectations and you end up, you know, blowing the budget, so to speak. So, you know, what can you do from a reporting point of view to keep a track on what's actually happening?
So when we're going for reporting, of course, you can see their funding, how much funding is left. It is also based on participant. You can see what is spent, but it's not just while reporting, because the report is going to be seen maybe once in a week. We are giving them while they're creating shifts of how much funding is left. So they can see it there itself, rather than going to reporting, because creating shift is everyday process, but looking at report might not be everyday process. until unless that's part of your business, that's part of your curriculum, and that's how you're doing it. Not every business is going to look for reports every day. Yep. But that is when we're showing them while they're creating shifts of how much funding is left with this person, be it in both dollars and hours, but dollars are not visible to everybody. But hours, how many in hours it is left, it is visible there. So they're not overspending their budget, and also not overbilling them, not overpaying their staff as well. Because if they're going and giving support, they didn't have that funding, they have to pay their staff anyhow.
Yep. So what I learned recently through real life experience was that we had a client that had assistance with daily life, say 80% of the budget, and they had 20% in community access. And we raised a service agreement that was ever so slightly a few dollars above the community access amount that was left in their actual plan. And what the plan manager told us, they said, oh, in the new pay system, we can only quarantine funds if the amount for community access is anywhere up to or less than what's in that actual budget. If it goes above, we can't quarantine those funds for you. And I found that a really interesting learning experience, because you've got to do the dance of seeing what people are willing to share in terms of what's actually left, because it is their right not to share that with you. But if you can still kind of get some kind of input, you know, but like, okay, what can you give me an idea about what's actually left? This again all links together, right? Because fundamentally, with your point of tracking budget, if you can get your sales process down pat where, you know, you're only allocating amounts in your service agreements that are either up to or just under what's actually left, it kind of, you know, hand on heart, that a good plan manager will quarantine those funds for you, so they're not going to get spent by someone else. And then to your point there, this all links. Like, you know, if you're blowing it out in Ks, then either way, through dollars an hour tracking, Ezanga automatically tracks both of those variables, doesn't it, in terms of actual anticipated remaining funds?
Yes.
Yeah. Interesting. So yeah, we don't want support workers to have to text in, email, or whatever. It should feed billing and payroll because it's a unified thing. So yeah, charge your dollars to the customer and charge your. Sorry, say again.
I said that is being done through Ezanga as an automated process.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. So yeah, in terms of receipts, let's imagine you've got. I had some instances where we were taking a participant down to the hospital in Sydney. And we had to charge parking because it was related to the disability and their medical appointment at the doctor's. So how does that work with Ezanga? Because, like, you know, again, I see it all the time where someone will text in or email in the receipt for the parking, and then it's a pain in the bum because you've got to then add it to your payroll system manually, upload it somewhere as a record. Like, what does Ezanga do in terms of, you know, having a way of both billing but also keeping a digital copy of receipts for parking?
So with the respect for billing and paying, we we've got field for a company travel provided travel. We also have got another field where you can add any other expenses which you are going to either bill or pay depending on how you want to do it. And apart from that, there's a place where you can add n number of images. So they can take a picture of the receipt and just put it in the mobile app while they're on the shift, and as they clock out, it will be then reflected to the admins on the back end.
Yep.
And it's not just it's not just the receipt. If there are people are using it also to see how happy their clients are, they just take a picture, put it on, and it works wonders.
It does. And so that could be, let's say you cleaned the bathroom today and you want to have a picture to prove that you did a good job of that. Can you use that upload function for those things too?
Yes, because that is, you can either click a picture or upload a picture anyway.
Yep. Okay. So it's both, right? So basically, by definition, you've got a digital copy of evidence of shift stuff and receipts, and then you just type in the relevant field if you need to have the other thing for parking, which again goes to billing and payroll automatically, and it picks the right code from the price guide according to the way that you configure the shift, basically, whether it be community access or capacity building, etc.
Yeah.
Interesting. Nice. I suppose the other thing that's interesting from an audit point of view is that, you know, it is relevant that you can demonstrate that the participant agrees that the shift has happened, right? So really the main way of doing that, it could be the picture process, like you said, but also more than that, what about the signature process? So could you tell us about how it works for literally a participant, if they're able to physically, signing off on a shift?
They are able to sign it during, so when the shift is going to get completed, so support workers have filled in everything. So participants do have the ability to check it all and then sign it. And as soon as a participant signs, we give a support worker just 15 minutes to clock off, because we don't want them to just take sign and then roam about, and then maybe they're clocking off after half an hour, 1 hour. So in case they're not doing it within 15 minutes, they have to take participant signature again.
Okay. Right. So it happened within that period of time. That makes a lot of sense. Because again, unfortunately, with disability, maybe especially in the psychosocial space, relationships can be challenged sometimes, and all of a sudden someone might decide they don't like you anymore. And if they don't like you anymore, they might say, I'm not paying that invoice. But then if you can demonstrate through the system, like, no, this did actually happen, then I think you've got the mechanism to make a case to either the agency or the plan manager, for example. That's why signatures are relevant too, as well as empowering the participant in general. Yes, and then your auditors will love you for that in terms of that. I suppose I think we're nearly there on the PowerPoint, but we'll get to questions in a second. One of the common missing gaps with, say, rostering versus your accounting is that, we've got manual processes in between, and we've got an accounting system, we've got a rostering system, they're not connected, and there can be the gap of, not linking together shifts to invoices, but then there can also be the gap of saying, well, wait a minute, that shift, has it been billed for? And is the corresponding invoice, has that been sent? Is it been paid? Like literally reconciling operational reality to the invoicing process. How does it work again with, not just creating invoices from Izango to say Xero or MemoIB? How does it work with like information coming back?
So with respect to information coming back, when we are linking with your accounting platform, say Xero, which is the most common one. So anything you mark paid as in Xero, that will also get marked paid in our system. Something you're voiding in your Xero, that will also get voided here. So that it's a real-time thing. There's a balance between your CRM system, the rostering one, and also your accounting system. So we're not managing the accounting system, but whatever you're doing in your accounting system, we are fetching that for your ease here as well, because this is the platform which you're using throughout your day.
Brilliant. So logically, let's say you had 5 shifts in a week. I know that Izango will amalgamate that into one singular invoice, but still there's a logical link at this shift level where you can go, this shift happened on this date and this is the invoice and now it's paid. So like it took me a couple of weeks to get used to it, but then once I did, I was like, oh, look at that. There's literally no shifts that haven't been invoiced for. They are logically dealt with, so to speak. And that gives you a lot of reassurance that you've not missed out on any income, basically. Yeah. And to pay you a compliment, Ria, I know that not even some of the bigger systems can do that. So that kind of reconciliation back's rather crucial. So, hats off to you. I think the final thing I want to talk about very briefly is, in terms of keeping tracks on people, is the idea of shift forms. So you've got your standard forms. As you said before, you can mark something as mandatory or not. This is an example of when I go to do a sales pitch, I say to people, look, we don't do pieces of paper. If I've got a piece of paper, I've failed to do an IT strategy, and they go, "Ooh, shit, who's this guy?" And then I show them a demo, and they go, "What?" So we'll do all the medication charts inside of Izango. If we've got something that is for, say, the dietitian on the full food and bowel side of things, what they've eaten for the day, we'll put that in there as a custom form. And the point here is that at the office level, we know that once a shift has been done, if you've got a little tick against those charts, those are the actual entries, and they're real-time entries that happen. So again, you're keeping a track on things. Do you want to, again, just talk to that a little bit? And I want to share one of the real-life example of that that's relevant for practitioners.
Yeah, because this is just an example of maybe with the mealtime. So we also have got things like, there are different kind of forms which are already predefined and existing in the system. Apart from that, if somebody is not okay with using what forms we've given, they can also create their own forms, which will link to the shifts, which are further entered by the person there or the support worker. And that is when it is being submitted. And all the data is fetched on the backend, and further there is reporting as well. For example, you want to have a report of a food intake form. for last whole 1 week, because any doctor is requiring it or any XYZ person requires it for that particular participant. That is when you would just go on the participant's profile, go for food intake, put in the dates and fetch that report. It's that easy.
It is. And the export of that data. So again, talk about point of difference. So in a marketing hat, I say you've got to have a unique value proposition. That's how are you relevant? How are you different? And how do you quantifiably add value? So on the Central Coast where I live, I've been going around meeting everyone. I've been a networking machine. I've been like, hi, it's nice to meet you. Hey, you're a behavior support practitioner. I know that you've got a QR code, and that QR code is printed out, it's put on the wall, and guess what? All the support workers forget to fill it in because they don't have to, right? And so I go, look, I've got a better way. I've got ABC charts, which are just behind the QR code. I've got that in my system that I use. So guess what? I can make that mandatory because I know you need that data. And I guess what? I can do better than that. I've got the data for visibility, and I'm going to share that with you whenever you want. It can be as it happens, weekly, fortnightly, monthly, whatever. And then their minds just go, anytime. Their minds just go, what? You can guarantee that I get that insight in Excel as a download between whatever dates you want? Transformative.
Because whenever you're marking something as mandatory and they're not filling it, they're not getting paid. Because that is one of the tasks for them to do throughout the shift.
Yep. You got to have the carrot and the stick. So sorry to speak plainly, but you got to be able to kind of go like, no, you got to finish this, right? Yeah. And so it really works with behavior support. And also with that thing on the screen there, it had the food chart for the dietitian. Out of genuine sincerity, like we've got a lady that is generating, and she can vomit or have diarrhea, or there's real like health impacts that we need to monitor because it's a degenerative thing, right? And that's crucial to have more targeted interventions from a dietitian and speech pathology perspective. And that not only guarantees the well-being of the client better, but when it comes to change of circumstances and going for better funding with the agency, you can go, look, mate, here's 3 months that's, it's really sad, but like I can show you that we're having problems every day or 80% of the time. Here's stuff for every single shift. That you can't lie about that data. It's really making a positive impact to people's lives.
And we hope we do change that for everybody, and it becomes a thing for everybody in the industry.
It's truly cutting edge. So one of the polls I just put on the side there was, how do you approve your timesheets? We've got 1/3 of people saying manually, and others saying some manual, some automatic. So again, it's interesting to know. What I'd love to do is just go to some questions, because I don't want to do death by PowerPoint, so to speak. I'm going to read out some of the stuff in the chat. So if you've got additional questions, please enter the chat now, and we'll see what the answers are. Karen is saying we have some support workers clocking out hours later and in a different location. Right. Since we don't have visibility, if it's really completed, what steps can be taken? Okay, to comply. All right. This again, that comes down to rules of your business. So look, the GPS aspect of Ezanga is useful because you can know where they're doing it from. So that's insightful. People do inevitably forget sometimes, unfortunately. So I think you've got literally two ends of the scale. You've got safety to guarantee that they've actually started, and where were they when they started. That's the vulnerability aspect of things. So that's the benefit is the insight, so that you can go, are you okay? Are you there? What's happening? The clocking out thing, if you run your business based on billing rostered time rather than actuals, what I've done with Ezanga is I've said, look, not ideal, but I'm willing to let my workers clock out anywhere within 24 hours after if they had to, because they forgot, right? So I'm not saying it's perfect, but I allow it, because then operationally it kind of, it means that practically they can still go ahead and do it themselves. If it becomes a pattern, then of course that's a training issue point, but at least we have visibility of where they did it. So yeah, do you have any further comments on that in terms of, again, there's lots of different ways of doing things, aren't there, Ria?
Yeah. It's like, I'm not sure what Karen is doing. I think she might be doing things manually. That's why she doesn't have the visibility, first of all, where if the shift has really been completed or not, and that too from what location. So Karen, I would highly recommend using a system like Izango, wherein all these things will be automated. You will then comply by all the processes because it's what is going to fall in the business rules.
Yes, true. And then on that note as well, the follow-up question from Karen is, how do you deduct hours from your support workers for either late or tardiness within, say, 10 minutes work or reconciliation of the timesheet? So that'll come down to your rules. That'll come down to your rules about, for example, are you billing based on rostered or actual time? And again, Ria, I'm sure you've got a good, clever answer for that. Like, how could you, let's say someone is being tardy and they're turning up 30 minutes late and it's not fair to charge the client for that. Like, give me some ideas about what tech solutions you could do for the late worker.
It can be, for example, what clients have done, that if there is only 10 to 15 minutes of discrepancy, they directly move it to scheduled hours, because only 5 or 10 minutes, even they don't want to charge a client or pay the staff, right? But then if it gets maybe later than 15 minutes or 30 minutes, that's when they can ask for a reason why they're clocking out late, right? So these are the kind of things that, again, then it depends on what client wants from us. So like I told you, there are clients who are asking us to manually auto approve if there's only 10 to 15 minutes of discrepancy. But then there are also clients that they say, even if it's a 1 minute late thing, they want to be flagged about it. Then they're flagged that these are the shifts which are underrun or overrun. But then there are also clients. But then there are also clients. Sorry, I was just reading what Karen is writing there. Karen, so Karen is saying, sorry, Ria, I didn't quite get the system you mentioned.
It's Izango, Karen. So Izango is the system that I use, and it's the one that we we're talking about both the principles here, but also the system that I happen to use and the system that Ria is part of the organization of. I've put a link to that way you could book a demo, for example, with Ria if you wanted to have a look at it. I'd highly recommend it. So yes, but sorry, Ria, you were going into it. It's kind of like, it depends, right? So you can do the tolerance rules, can't you?
Yes. So whatever is okay with the business, that's what we make okay with the system. Yes. So like the 10-minute thing, like I go with the human factor of sometimes it can be hectic. You can genuinely just forget to check in, or it can be completely frantic as you get there because it's a full-on, hectic shift. And so you give a little bit of leniency up to 10 minutes, but after that, I'm checking, are you there? And again, reporting. So you've got automated rules for reporting, so you can visibly see, consistently, are you always checking in late? What's the go? Do I need to, discipline the staff member, basically, or train them or whatever? And then you've got the human factor of people forget sometimes. You got to have. Again, it depends. So people can say that they need a reason. So while they're writing a reason, because anyhow, we are taking that participant signature there. So exactly. They need to comply by that. Yeah.
And then also even on the late checkout side of things, like I've noticed that some people may choose to stay back. So if you're seeing that consistently in your reporting, well, then you can have two conversations. You can have a conversation with the client and say, look, do you need to have a new agreement with us where it's 9 o'clock, not 8 o'clock finish? So you can have that commercial conversation. You can also have a boundaries conversation. Like I've got a participant that we look after that, she's always saying, oh, no, don't go. Do you mind if we just do this last? And so what we have to, that's a training point then. So then we have to say to our workers, this person has time blindness as part of their disability. When it's half an hour before the finish of your shift, training point is that you need to vocalize that you're going in 30 minutes and therefore, give them a heads up, basically. Yeah. So, it's everything. It's training points, it's commercial points, it's visibility. This is the wisdom of the webinar, basically. Samuel from Great Disability Support is asking the question, how do you give allied health partners like OTs, physios, the information, the forms? So it is, it's in the database of Izango, right? So it's fundamentally there. It's against the participant record, but you can download it as an Excel. Are there any other particular formats that you can, download it as, Ria?
we can also automate whatever. For example, there can be a particular report which a client would want to send to further any third party, can be their OTs, physios, or XYZ any person. So that is where we can also customize it and send it directly from within the system. And further, we can also go down to the level of where they are acknowledging it, signing it, you're getting the signed document back. So we can also do things like that. But again, then it depends on till how deeply you want to use the system.
Yes. Yes. I mean, for transparency, I'm working on that very thing with you guys right now. We're setting up a little cool function where we're going to say against the participant's profile, you've got what are called service providers in the profile. And then you can say, you know, the OT, the support coordinator, you literally configure it and go click, click, click. This person, this email address, these stakeholders, so to speak, need to see the email automatically. And then it should send the frequency, you know, weekly, fortnightly, blah, blah, blah. So that's something I'm currently working on, because otherwise the manager or the admin person has to remember to do that, you know, once a month or once a week or whatever. And again, it's reducing the admin time.
Yeah, because our main focus is reducing the admin time. If your admin is, so that's what I always encourage my clients as well, that whatever you're doing manually, be it anything which might not even be related to our system, do let us know, because if there would be any way for us where we can automate that process, we would do it. Because even if we are saving any 5 to 10 minutes a day, it gets to be huge in a year.
Yes, exactly. Well, look, I mean, the thing is that being a business coach in sales and marketing, yes, I'm focused on growth, but like the more I kind of go into my own business, the more I recognize the relevance of all these administrational points and scaling points, etc. So I'll always be an advocate for saying you need a sales and marketing machine, but you also need a process that onboards participants effectively, keeps track of your support workers. And, you know, let me just see if there's any final questions here. Actually, one, there you go, Karen, they're good on you. Follow up for my second question. If, say, the support worker might be late, do you charge the client in full, or does it still come down to business policies? Because we're concerned that some of the things where NDIS might question the charges, or if it's against their policy. Cool. Again, it comes down to how you want to run it. You can literally choose kind of A or B or C, based on actual rostered time that you bill only, or it's the scheduled time. And yeah, you kind of have to pick your path. Do you have any further comments on that, Ria?
No, same exactly what you said. They have to pick the path, which way they want to go. Because I'm not sure if NDIS is going to question them for it, because it is what their business policy says.
Yes, and I suppose it also comes down to, you know, the ethics of your business. It comes down to thinking about, say, plan management. A lot of plan managers will then send the invoice to the customer to either approve or reject. And so, you know, if you ethically might go, no, we can only charge the actuals, and therefore, you know, hand on heart, that invoice that's sent for approval says we started at 9:15 today, not 9 o'clock. So it's all there. It all links, right? And then again, you can do it the other way. You can say, no, there's a tolerance, and if it happens, it's a training problem, it's a customer service problem. You know, we're going to make sure it doesn't happen. We're going to ask our staff member to stay back that extra 15 minutes to make it up to you, and we're so sorry it won't happen again. And you just bill it on rostered. You can do it either way. So look, the final thing on the screen there on the right is to say, if you're interested to have a look at Izango, there's an offer to get what they call the lead management module for free for 3 months if you sign up. I use that every day. That's basically where you're using a smart form on your website to collect the information about the participants. And then it means that the actual creation of the participant and then the subsequent service agreement happens a lot quicker, because you're kind of getting away from all those manual emails where you can get, oh, can you send me this? And, oh, I forgot to ask you that. Oh, what about this? Like it's making it into just, you know, one thing that you can fill in. So there's a big benefit to that. So, you know, I'd recommend giving it a go, as well as just seeing a demo of the system. And the reason I can put my hand on heart to this is because I'm a very hard man to please. Like, again, I know it's a story that I make Ria laugh, but like when I met Ria for the first time, I put her through 4 hours of my questioning, the poor lady.
No, but it was very interesting. It's because it's always good to chat. It's always good to talk about what NDIS has, so we are also always open to feedback. anything which is not there in our system, which we do not believe it will not be. But if there is something which is not there, we can build that for you.
Yeah,
we're always open to feedback.
And again, that's the point of difference. That's the point of difference. Like whether it's the smaller systems or even the bigger systems, you can put ideas on a product roadmap, and the product roadmap is just a way of saying we're never going to do this, right? With the whereas Ezanga actually responds, and it happens. So that's the kind of the quality stamp that I'd say. So one final question. Sam was saying, what was I using before? So my own NDIS business is only 9 months old now. We launched in say January, February. And I've got a guilty confession, Samuel. Initially, I was doing Excel because I was being a cheapskate. And then after a couple of months, as we brought on our first, 3 or 4 participants, I was like, oh my goodness, Ria, I need you now. Let's go for it. And that just changed things. So yeah, I had the guilty Excel initially. But yes, you won't scale your business on a crap system. You've got to have something that can grow with you, right? Yes.
That's
cool.
What we help people with, because we want to grow with them. We want to build the system with them, build for their requirements.
Yeah. And it made all the difference. And by the way, Samuel, as well, I noticed that it had a really positive impact on the culture from a staff point of view, because then because I was using Ezanga as it's intended, people go, oh my God, this is great. This is easy. Once they've got the app on the phone, it's literally all there. It's intuitive within 10 minutes of training. So yeah, that helps, because then that good word about your business gets out, because operations matters, the culture of the business matters. That's where actual word of mouth referrals come from. Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, listen then, Ria, I think we've covered all the questions at this point. Was there anything else you wanted to say, or are we all good?
That's all. Thank you to everybody who has been listening us from past 50 minutes. And to you as well for arranging it.
Absolute pleasure. Look, thanks for everyone's time today. We'll send out the recording for anyone also watching this, so thanks for looking back on it. And if you ever want to come back to the webinar, we'll have it on the website soon as a replay. So thanks everyone for your time, and I hope you have a good day ahead.
Thank you.
Cheers, Ria.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone. Catch you soon.
See ya. Bye.
Bye.